Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with hosts Amy Babinchak, James Kernan, and Carl Polachek. Produced by Kernan Consulting and for the international MSP community. We are dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional.
Hello and welcome to the Small Business Community Podcast with Amy Babinchak. That's me and James Kernan. How are you today, James?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. It's summertime and I love this weather and struggling with my garden, but that's okay.
You know what? I should take it back. I was untruthful a moment ago. I'm not doing well. For the record, I'm super tired and sore. And the weekend warrior in me, I got to tell you, this is hilarious. I had some giant limestone steps delivered on the edge of my driveway. And I was like, oh, I can install these myself. It's got crowbars and dollies. And there's 10 big steps that I installed on the side of the house. I'm so physically worn out. I can't believe I'm standing today.
Don't you have some big, strong, young boys that you generated?
I do, but they were out of town.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah. The younger one was out of town. The older one did pop over for a brief moment and help me move a couple of the stones down there. But anyway, I did the majority myself, and I thought I'd be better today, but I'm still pretty tired.
Stones and wood are both much heavier than you think they're going to be.
Yeah. These were monsters. They were big. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, you do have to put those muscles you have to use now and then, right?
Yeah, I gotta get rid of that old that rust on the old muscles. But yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to a new week. And I was so tired I couldn't work out this morning. So I'll get back.
Oh, whoa.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
That's serious. Well, I'm sure you're gonna be good as new and probably even stronger in a couple of days. So it'll be worth it.
Thank you for that. I think.
All right, James, we have a very interesting question of the week today. It is, do you have an entry-level MSP offering? And I really like this question because it was something that was really integral and was important to me in my MSP. And I know you have some opinions on this too, so we're going to have a great conversation. Why don't you get us started? What do you think about the entry-level offer?
So I would say yes, you do need an entry-level offer. And, one size does not fit all. One, for the price point, and two, for the services. There's lots of reasons maybe why you just want one all-you-can-eat plan. There's several coaches and consultants that believe that. But I'm, my businesses and coaches, and then the businesses that I coach all have a diverse clientele. So I would always encourage, 2, maybe even 3 offerings, so you can give the customer a choice based on their budget. So I love the idea of a entry-level offering.
All right. I love it too, but here's where we differ.
Okay.
I had one service offering with different price points. So, and I did that because the one service plan offering, because it was difficult for my tech staff to remember who's who and what's chargeable, what's not chargeable. So to avoid that issue, I created one. And in my MSP, fully half of our clients by number of client, fully half of those were in the very small category. They certainly didn't make up half the revenue, but they made up just half of the total number of customers. And by very small, I mean, from a single person to like 6 or 7 people. That was kind of our definition of very small. Okay. And what I did with them is we gave them the same service, but we backed off on the frequency of our proactive things.
Yep.
So like with our other customers, everything was sort of based around the month. But with our small group of customers, they were based around the quarter. So we just kind of spread out what it was that we did for them, and when we went in and looked at that thing, or how often we went in and tuned up, security settings and checked the backup and that kind of thing.
Yep.
We did it less frequently, but we did all the same services. And that made it palatable for those small companies to be able to afford it.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, we and ironically for me, we had 3 programs. We had kind of the entry level, we had the middle of the road plan, which was we called it unlimited, but it wasn't really unlimited remote support. It was everything in the entry level plan plus remote support Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. So they got access to that, and it wasn't unlimited. We drew the line on like projects were billed separately, for example. But
Sure.
then we also had the all-you-can-eat plan where we would customize those. Some we had hardware as a service. Typically, the all-you-can-eat plan included on-site if we got to that. But 95% of our tickets were all remote anyway, so that was pretty good. And then we could extend the hours 24/7 as an additional fee if they wanted.
Yeah, I think it's easier to do those customizations on the larger clients, because they will have specific needs. But when we're talking those entry level ones, sometimes these are firms that are gonna grow up, and sometimes they're not. They're just gonna, stay that 3-person accounting firm for the rest of their existence, and they're perfectly happy with it, but they know that they need professional IT because their entire business relies upon it.
Yeah.
And so they are willing to pay you for good service. So you don't necessarily have to cheap out, but you do need to right size it for them.
Yeah.
They still need the same gamut. We also had consultants, engineering consultants, some independent trainers, and couple of folks that had they were doing outsourced architectural drawings, right? So they just 2 guys, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it was all these really micro-sized businesses, but that were very dependent on technology and recognized that it was really critical to their business.
Yeah.
And they wanted to have us there, almost to have us have that relationship pre-built, so that if something did go haywire, they already had someone that they were working with. There's value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting about the model that I'm talking about? We actually, some of my larger clients were on that entry level plan. So because they were co-managed facilities.
Oh, sure.
And, my sales strategy and again, why I offered options, it really related back to my sales strategy for the entire team. We were really big on, let's just do business together, dip your toe in the water. You could start off with the entry-level plan. And then my team was trained to aggressively cross-sell and upsell. So we'd do that through QBRs and through relationship. And we sold lots of product as well. We have one of our services, jokingly, I would call product acquisition services. So we did security, we did CRM and document management solutions, business process optimization, cloud, voice, so those were different services. So it didn't really relate to the size of the business but it was more just a entry-level price point where we just had a real simple offering where our tools were on it. Everything was automated. And if something, an alert would go off, the alert would go to the customer, and it's their responsibility, to respond. If they wanted us to do it, then we would bill them our rate through the help desk when needed. But
yeah,
that was.
So there's 2 different types of entry level that we've been talking about. One is for that ultra small business, and the other is for getting yourself a foothold into a larger company, right? Into that co-managed space, or, maybe just introducing part of your services to that company. So there's different ways to think about entry level, but whichever way you're going to go, yeah, I think we both agree you need to have those entry level offerings. Otherwise, you're you're missing out on potential business.
That's exactly right. You are missing out. And, I, years back, the True Methods philosophy with Gary Pika. Gary Pika is a good friend of mine, but this is where we always differed. He always would push the all-you-can-eat plan, one size fits all. And, sales 101 is you need to give client options. And so you box them in, you give them a low, a middle, a high, and then you kind of wedge them into that and then start doing business with them. It's an easier way to win new accounts that way, as opposed to just ramming one size fits all down their throat.
Right. Yeah, I too hear things that I disagree with. One, the thing that always kind of raised my hackles a bit was when they would say, you don't want any clients that are smaller than 10 or smaller than 20, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, well, gosh, I have this big group of very small clients and they're super profitable because they're low demand. So for the amount of time that we're spending on those, they're not high revenue, but they're high profit individually. And that made them worthwhile keeping around, right? For very low effort, we made a lot of profit off of that. And so anything you're going to make money on, you shouldn't leave on the table. You need to have solutions available.
Yeah. Let me tell you a quick funny story as it relates to that, because it's one of the things when you think of entry-level managed service plans, I think of more of the price point. Most people have an ideal customer profile, like I want 5 seats or more, or 10 seats or more.
Mm-hmm.
And most everybody has that threshold. Here's a funny story though. Early in my sales career, I was probably 8-9 years into my sales career, but it was still relatively early because I'm an old guy. There was a customer that came in, and it was a walk-in customer, and we had a reception desk up front, and my office was right around the corner next to the conference room of that front lobby. And I heard customer come in and they wanted to buy a computer. And then, so the receptionist did the intercom. One of the sales reps came up, and I won't name names, but I remember exactly who it was. He came up and kind of in a pompous way was like, oh, I'm sorry, you need to schedule appointments ahead of time. And honestly, we just don't do one-offs. We don't sell computers to residential people. We only work with businesses. I remember him saying that, and I felt bad. So I jumped up, came around the corner, and I said, hey, I'll take this. I said, hey, come with me and sit down in the conference room. So I just sat down, and this was a business owner, come to find out. He was buying a computer for himself, but he also had a big company that had more than 10 employees, and he became a client of mine because I jumped up and helped out the little guy. And so I've always had a heart, and I know you too, Amy,
Bet.
We always have a heart for the little guys and want to help them. But I would encourage you, don't have a firm, hard rule where if it's under 10 seats, you're not even going to give them the time of day. You look at the potential. You got to look at other things.
I have a couple of great stories to support this thought. One is that I had a client for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I always call them the biggest small business in the world. And what they did was they did payroll and provided stockers for the U.S. military commissaries. And one day I was talking with the business owner, and I asked her how she got into that business. How'd you get this contract with the entire U.S. military providing shelf stocking in every commissary around the world? And from my point of view, they had 12 people in the office, but those 12 people were pumping out payroll for like 4,200 people.
Wow.
And they did some shipping logistics as well, but extremely efficient business. And as she said, well, I answered the phone one day, and it was a friend of hers from Kelly's, who worked for Kelly's Services, and said, hey, would you be interested in this? Because we don't provide grocery store shelf stockers. And she said, and at the time she had a business supplying engineers to the automotive companies, but she said, sure, I'll talk to them. Well, it turned out to be this giant federal contract. It started off as a small federal contract, turned into this giant federal contract.
Wow.
She ditched the whole engineering business and had a entire business based on this contract for about 20 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
All because she answered the phone one day and didn't say no. It was outside of what she did, but she was like, yeah, I'll talk to him.
Mm.
It reminds me of just what you said about having that business owner walk in wanting to buy a computer for his home. And then the second thing I'll say is, you and I both run peer groups. In my peer group, there was a guy, and he told me, he said, well, I have about 400 customers, and I know he has, about 8 employees. And I said, wait a minute, what's going on? How do you tell me more about this? There's more to this story. And he said, well, about 350 of those are residential.
Mm.
And I said, oh man, in my MSP, we didn't touch residential with the proverbial 20-foot pole. We always said no.
Yeah.
He said, well, when he was just a solo guy, he started off doing residential and he just never let them go. And he doesn't advertise for residential, but it's word of mouth. It just keeps growing.
Right.
He doesn't mind a managed service, recurring billing. And, he installs a little security on them. But he said it is the best referral and has totally grown his business support side of the company because all of those people work someplace. And he said that's where all his referrals come from. Wow. So, as I always say, there are many ways to be successful in this business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's what's so exciting. I've been in the channel for 30 years and there's countless story after story after story of just these fun examples and great people, unique people. It's really, to me, just an amazing industry. It's an amazing industry, very rewarding, and it can be a lot of fun.
I agree. Well, I think that was an excellent question of the week. If you have a question that you would like to have us talk about, you can send it to me, Amy at thirdtier.net, or you can send it to James. And why don't you give us your email address, James?
Yeah, it's James at KernanConsulting.com. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Any questions or opinions that you have on what Amy and I are talking about, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, we are recording this at the end of the Olympics. And in fact, the closing ceremony just happened. And that doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching it because I have a Peacock subscription and I got a whole bunch of things that I still want to see because there was so many great events and fun stuff. Last episode, I think I mentioned that I like to watch all the things that I can't see the rest of the time because they're just not shown on TV that often. And I'll tell you, one of the things I really enjoyed this weekend watching was sport climbing. It's rock climbing known to the rest of us, but sport climbing. And I was so impressed with those people. And it was such an exciting show. And they had a great announcer that was super enthusiastic. And, they always pair them. It was a man and a woman. And this was the women's sport climbing events. They do bouldering and also lead climbing. That's where you have the line on you. And yeah, it was just such an exciting sport, because you're kind of hoping they don't fall, but they always do at some point. And to watch them fall from those heights and then bounce on the padding or get caught by the line or whatever, it's dramatic and it's fun and they're amazing. I don't know how, they talk about resting and they're hanging upside down. I'm like, how do you rest hanging upside down by your fingertips? But
well, there were some additional exciting stories. I know we shared a couple last week, like Simone Biles with the gymnastics. She's just incredible.
Incredible.
This weekend, I watched some of the mainstream and then some of the not so mainstream, but Katie Ledecky, women's swimmer, amazing performance. She was incredible.
Amazing. I watched the swimming. I only watched her in the swimming actually.
Yeah.
And because I had seen a little highlight reel and I forget which it was. Was it the 800 or the 400? She was so far ahead, they couldn't get her and the rest of the pack in the television frame at the same time.
Yeah, it was like watching Seattle Slew, win by
Oh yeah, incredible.
30 lengths. And then did you see any of the basketball? So I'm not a big men's basketball fan, but
I'm not any kind of basketball fan, really. I just can't get into it.
I'm normally not as well, but I was watching the USA for the gold medal match play France, and France was keeping up. It made a heck of a game of it. They were only down by 3 points, I think, with a few minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It's like, uh-oh, they're coming back. And Stephen Curry, who's, MVP, NBA, he had the first 4 games, I guess, in the Olympics. He didn't play very well, but he heated up, and he was dropping these 3-pointers from way back behind the arc. The last one, 2 guys were on him in his face. He jumped backwards, and it looked like he just threw it up in the air, and it went in. I still can't believe it. That was amazing. And then I've got to bring up the poor woman, 34-year-old woman from Australia. Did you see any of the breakdancing?
I did not see any of the breakdancing, or at least not yet. I might take a look at it.
Yeah, the social media is just having a heyday with this poor woman. And some of the announcers said, hey, there's some really good breakdancers and there's some not very good breakdancers. And they were then picking on this poor woman from Australia who, was in the Olympics representing her country. So that's an accomplishment in itself. But there's viral videos going all around about this poor woman doing her breakdancing. And that's a shame. But anyway, lots of cool things to happen. Just great stories. It was fun to watch.
It was, absolutely. I also enjoy watching what they now call artistic swimming. Used to be called synchronized swimming. They've changed the name of it.
Yeah.
But it's because I am in awe. Oh, and by the way, they can have men on their teams now. So there weren't any, but they were announcing that they now allow men. So I expect to see them in the next Olympics. But the thing is, it has become an aerial sport, an incredible athletics, right? They're not allowed to touch the bottom of the pool, but they build these 3 people deep platforms and shoot people up into the air. They're doing triple flips and layouts and all kinds of things and coming down. And it's just like, how do you shoot people out of the water like that without touching the ground? And they're only allowed to hold their breath for up to 4 minutes legally. And they do it consistently all the time. I thought people died after 3 minutes of holding their breath, but
I'm out of breath just thinking about holding my breath. So
I'm with you. I am with you. So anyway, that sport, that's one that takes a lot of ribbing, but you might want to check it out because it is so much different than it used to be. It's no longer about, forming pretty shapes on the water. It's all of this highly athletic stuff. It's pretty incredible.
Hey, I know we're running out of time. You had brought up to me before the call about the Microsoft technical change. We should probably have started with that because I think that's pretty important. But you want to elaborate on what you shared with me earlier?
Yeah. So coming up on September 1st is the deadline. But between now and then, you need to get ready because Microsoft has changed the rules for break glass accounts, really for all accounts, even service accounts you might have out there. Everything must use MFA now. A few months ago, they changed it to where they had to register for MFA, but now they must use MFA. This is going to be an issue for MSPs out there because we've got break glass emergency access accounts on every tenant. And where does that MFA go and how are you going to manage the MFA across all of those? There's some passwordless options out there. So, my recommendation is going to be, order yourself 100 FIDO keys and start to set those up and keep them in a safe place because this is a very important change. If you're not up on it, you could find yourself locked out of your break glass account if you haven't set up the MFA for it, and that would be a disaster.
Yeah. That's an important one for sure.
Yeah. So it's actually the topic of my newsletter this week. So if you're not on my mailing list, jump on it. You know, if you head over to thirdtier.net, you'll get the pop-up that can get yourself signed up. Just put your email address in there and you can get that. And if you missed that edition, let me know. Just drop me an email, amy@thirdtier.net, and I'll make sure that you get that edition of it, because I've got all the links in there for your different options of how to get your MFA set up on those accounts. So that was that is a really important change. And we just got one more thing to quickly talk about before we go, because we always like to throw in some kind of news item out there, and TikTok is in the news again, still about whether the U.S. is going to be successful at forcing a Chinese-owned company to sell themselves to a U.S.-based company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That article, I read that, and it was looked like the Justice Department was really kind of punching back at TikTok, arguing that because this is an election year, the algorithm could allow the Chinese government to influence the U.S. elections. So they think that they're trying to do that. So that's an interesting accusation. But anyway.
Yeah, there was a big article too that, was it CISA? I think it was CISA that put out that Iran has a big disinformation campaign underway. Yeah. Across many social media platforms. So that's not just a TikTok problem. But Congress is very intent on blocking TikTok. So, they want the Justice Department to keep pushing and following this, and they're the ones that's driving it. So we'll see. TikTok's very, very popular in the United States, so it's not a popular opinion to block that, but Congress is adamant.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the clients that I know use TikTok, they're still using it. They're not away. They're not changing what they're doing. They're just going to keep riding that pony as long as they can. So it'd be interesting to see how that all turns out.
Yeah, I read recently that the owners of TikTok, ByteDance, I think is their name, they said it's not feasible to sell it by the deadline. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, and if they had a buyer, which they don't apparently, it's not even feasible to close a business that large and complex in the deadline amount of time. So I think we're going to see that in the news quite a bit. It's definitely something to follow. So with that, we have used up our time today. James, it's been great to talk to you. We had an awesome question of the week and some fun stuff in between and important news. So I really, really, really enjoyed talking through this episode with you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks. Good to see you as well. We'll see everybody back next week.
All right. We'll see everyone next week. Tune in.